This episode of the AI XR podcast is brought to you by our friends at Zapper. If you're in the XR space, you've probably felt the pain of juggling different tools, vendors, and platforms just to get an AR or VR project off the ground. It's exhausting, and it can really slow you down. That's where Zapper comes in. They've built a complete suite of tools and creative services all under one roof to make creating immersive experiences not just possible, but practical. Their next-gen 3D web tool, Mattercraft, is a game changer for building immersive experiences for headsets, smartphones, and AR, VR, and WebXR. It combines the power and flexibility of the 3JS rendering engine with a rich visual editor, making it super intuitive and easy for designers and developers to use. Put simply, you get the creative freedom of a powerful 3D engine with none of the headaches. So if you're ready to take your immersive projects to the next level, head over to zapper.com and see. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Roni Abovitz and Ted Shilowitz for the AI XR podcast. It's Friday, June 27th, and our guest today is Randy Marsden, the founder and CEO of the AR location company called Skidattl, and we'll find out more about that. He's an old friend of Roni's, and we'll talk to him in a few minutes after we get to the news. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to Randy. You and I both met him at AWE independently, and it's got a look at what he's up to, and it's interesting.
Yeah, he's got an amazing background too.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to chat with him.
Big news week. A lot of good stuff going on this week.
Yeah, major win-ish for Anthropic because they got a judge to agree that their unauthorized use of intellectual property on the internet that they scraped from the internet was indeed fair use. However, they had cached much of that content, and for retaining it, there is a crime. And that crime is punishable by up to $150,000 for each instance, and a trial for damages along those lines has been set for December. Anthropic won, and it was a big win for the entire industry, but they still have huge liability and are appealing that part of the ruling. So they declared victory, but they are not out of the woods yet. And then the more famous lawsuit that the comedian Sarah Silverman and Ta-Nehisi Coates brought against Meta, along with a dozen other artists, was dismissed because the artists failed to show how they were damaged by the infringement. So some wins for the AI industry, and then a bunch of funding announcements this week. Here's one that I think you'll find interesting, Ted. There's a company called Chronicle that has bet $12 million that with the help of AI, they are going to find and be able to grow the next billion-dollar franchise on social media.
Yeah, I'm actually friends with Chris DeFaria, one of the principals there. I've been over to his shop. It's funny, all these AI sort of companies are setting up in sort of historic old Hollywood places.
Yeah.
Like, interesting that they're sort of taking over the real estate that was used by the companies that started this crazy business going. But Chris is a really interesting guy. He's got a great background, very successful background. And I think, they're trying to tap into that YouTube vein of what goes viral. How, in a world of content where there's just way more content than anybody can absorb, and a tiny bit sort of cracks the code, they're trying to put a little AI science around the code. You wrote a really interesting article about it, right? You did a little recap of what they did.
Yeah. I had a chat with them earlier in the week, and I thought that their approach was unique, but probably will be copied by many, many people, especially in success.
Let me give you guys some insight into that. So, I met Chris years ago at Magic Leap and recently reconnected. He produced a short film with me, an Hour Blue short film called The Dream of the Black Whales. It's not released yet, but it was between myself, a director, I co-directed with another director in London, and we worked with a group called DNEG. So it's not out yet, but through that process, was talking with Chris about that. And one of the founding scientific advisors of SynthBee is a guy named Aaron Sisto. And I introduced Aaron to Chris, at the facility where I think this new thing is happening. So we had a meeting in LA, and that's where the two got together. So I think I'm the unnamed person that introduced Chris and Aaron together.
Wow. That's great backstory.
It's interesting that you worked with DNEG on the project, because they're one of the originators of disrupting a model, right? And largely using an Indian labor force to kind of rejigger the cost of VFX and animation and creationism.
Yeah, and this Dream of the Black Whales short film test, hopefully you guys can see it one day. We did test certain new techniques that were really interesting. So I did one short film with mostly myself and Wed, and one with DNEG. But in that process with Chris, we talked a lot about where the future of film was going. And I think Chris was really interested in like understanding the audience in order to like deliver hits more quantifiably.
Yeah.
And then, Aaron, has been a venture guy, is a PhD in like quantum and AI, was helpful early on in SynthB, but then has this affinity for what Chris was talking about. The two of them kind of created, I think it was like a sub pop for, like AI film future, trying to find like I think they want to find like, who are those cool new bands coming out of somewhere, and then match up, are they building that audience, and then try to like connect them and supercharge them to the Netflixes or whatever. So think of the role Sub Pop played, or Rough Trade played in music. That could potentially be the role these guys do, which is an interesting model.
So I wrote another story this week that I think was pretty popular about the rise of these new these new platforms for making entertainment with AI. And there were three of them: Arcana Labs, Electric Sheep, and another one called Movie Flow. They all have slightly different methods, but they're all trying to do the same thing, which is to give you a web-based platform where you can go from your very first prompt to a finished video.
And are they built on one of the large LLMs, or are they doing kind of like what Moon Valley is and doing independent of that?
What they do is with APIs, they give you the choice of all the different models.
So they're just linking on top of all the LLMs.
Right. It's basically just providing some tools on top of a interface to the APIs. So you could be using Kling, you could be using Luma Labs, you could be using Minimax, whatever, one of the top programs, and they have a point system where they're passing through the charges to the tool provider.
You know what, Charlie, you know what our listeners probably want? All the things we talk about, like a place to go to see, this is everything that's out there, but also what's worth exploring. Like there's something out there that's not that good, and these are the 5 best things.
Well, I know the reference.
There's not a place right now where you really see all that. It's everywhere. It's all over.
There is a little bit. There's Curious Refuge does that.
Okay.
That's kind of their specialty, is they'll break down latest news around various AI tools and large language models.
Yeah, they test them and make videos.
But does it rank it and say, like, currently, as of, June 25, these are the best 3 things for animation, for video, for reel, for editing, for compositing?
There are videos where he does that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are also independent companies that do benchmarking of one video model against another, and they test them for things like prompt adherence and speed of generation and so forth, because the value of an AI video generator is how long does it take to get it right?
How many tries at the AI slot machine?
Exactly. And it's all, and it all takes time, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're generating clips of any length over 4 seconds.
Yeah.
But when you see really good output, and you look at what's happened, they're probably using like 8 different tools, a bunch of Adobe stuff, Final Cut stuff, Pro Tools things. They're using a mix of really professional things and like tidbits, and then they'll composite with traditional stuff. So anything really good is not just prompt go, right? It's sophisticated workflows.
Yeah, but Arcana, for example, has a very, very sophisticated workflow. All of these are workflow managers, basically, that take you all the way through the editing process. So I was looking for all-in-ones. Right. And the only ones that really exist are Runway and LTX Studio ish, right?
Ish.
For certain kinds of filmmakers and certain kind of films, you won't have to leave the platform. Probably the most basic one is Movie Flow, but that's really made for marketers who want to A/B test and rapidly iterate creative for marketing. So like I said, they each have their own unique appeal. I think for those people who have been going to a lot of different tools and using a lot of sophisticated, non-AI tools, I think that, these are going to be Arcana will speak, each one will speak to a different kind of group of filmmakers or content creators. Interestingly, they are going to enable, whether it's these three or the existing market leaders or others yet to emerge, they are going to enable more and more AI content, what John Oliver calls AI slop. Right. And Oliver did an interesting show last week, where he was really calling out what he calls AI slop, and specifically all the, VO3 vlogs that I've been posting with stormtroopers and Bigfoot, all making selfies, and all of that's made with Google VO3. And, the way to make those has been widely disseminated on YouTube and on the socials. So lots of people are making that content, and, it's written by Gemini, and damn, it's entertaining. I gotta tell you, it's really entertaining. And that is exactly what Oliver's objection to it is, because it is synthetic content and it is drowning out real content and real people. And it's funny because I think we all can agree intellectually that we want content that's made by real people, but emotionally and perhaps secretly, when we're looking at social media and I see those stormtrooper vlogs, I do not reject them. They look like they're real.
Yeah.
Can I insert something, Charlie?
Please do.
I think slop, I'll translate into lack of talent. And if you gave those same people the whole Pixar team, you'd still have garbage coming out the other end, because the vision and creative direction is not good to begin with. But I think we're also seeing suppressed people with no money or didn't have the resources. Some of that stuff is rising up. So I think talent will express itself and will not be drowned out by the AI systems. I think talent will emerge, and the voice you have, the thing in your mind, you will find a way to make that happen and wrestle with these tools until it looks like that was Ted's vision. That was Charlie's vision. Like some kid will be like, this thing wasn't just no work slop, but I think you have to have a vision in your head that you're pushing, and then the tools carve away at it. Mm-hmm. I think slop is you're just playing with something and you have no vision. You're just blah, 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 using clip art or loops or something. And I think that's the difference, right? Some of the vision will not stop until it exists.
The problem here is that they're only a minute long. Yeah. So they can be entertaining enough in a minute. So I agree in terms of longer form storytelling content, but the stories they're telling are ridiculous and derivative, but they're fun and they're funny. And that is Oliver's concern, right? Is that they're going to take up our attention. By the way, I don't 100% agree with him. But he's very passionate and entertaining. And so it's part of the larger debate going on about, AI and what it's really doing to us, socially and creatively. And there's been a lot written in the press lately about people having cognition, reduction in cognition after using AI a lot. I don't think that's happening to me or other professional users, but I certainly think younger people are susceptible and also can fall prey to that cloying, flattering, weirdly overfamiliar voice of AI, because they haven't yet develop critical thinking skills. So I do think that danger is real. Anyway, I digress. I see we have Randy and his son and business partner, Colton Marsden, in the waiting room. I told Randy to please invite Colton if he felt he should be on the show as his business partner. So
yeah, we met
bringing them in. Yeah, they were together at AWE.
Thanks.
Randy, how are you?
Awesome.
Hey, Colton. Good to see you again.
How's it going?
Thank you guys for jumping in at the last minute and joining us. It's great to see you again so soon after AWE.
Yeah, what a great experience that was, and good to see you all as well. And yeah, thanks for having us on early. We're really excited to talk to you.
Now, you and Roni have known each other for some time.
I would say longer than you two, but not that long. I've certainly known of Roni for a long time, but we just met a month ago or so.
Yeah, we were introduced by a common friend but in AI internet time, it's probably at least a year.
Yeah.
There's a time, time dilation in AI internet time, right? So
that's right. We're like old friends already.
yes.
So Randy, you have kind of an extraordinary background, right? Because you've been working for some of the biggest companies in the industry for quite a while, including Apple.
Well, I kind of consider that a pit stop along my entrepreneurial journey, but it was a 10-year pit stop. Worked at Apple for 7.5 years and then Nike for 2.5 after that. And, I got to do a lot of fun things at both companies that are related to what we're talking about here probably. But, I was in charge of text input at Apple for most of my time there, and that included across all the platforms, including Apple Vision Pro. So I got to work with some of the teams there when I was there, and had a lot of fun.
So you're saying you're the person I should blame for autocorrect?
Yes. Well, I used to be. I've taken off my bulletproof vest, now. But I can show you how to not type duck if you would like to do that.
Made a good point when we were meeting up about, yes, it's not perfect, but try it without it and see how frustrating your life will be.
Right.
And it's actually pretty damn good. So
it's not, if you try it without it, you find out it's hard to live without it, but could always be better, of course. And then I like everyone had many faux pas of autocorrect that go down in my memory book of silly things that autocorrect hallucinated on. But
I would love to get your take on where Apple is at right now. And there's been a lot of criticism of Tim Cook and criticism of the Vision Pro. They kind of,
including by us. At South by Southwest.
Yeah, we had a panel at South by Southwest. I think that may have permanently put me in the Apple doghouse. But I'm interested in your take, larger, not just about the Vision Pro, because we beat that horse to death, but more about Apple's strategic position, having made the decision to go for the Vision Pro instead of doing the lower cost spectacles, if you will, or audio smart glasses, and focusing on that big display. So love to get your take on that. And again, recently there's been a lot of criticism, rare criticism, I think, of Tim Cook.
Yeah, I want to stay out of the Apple doghouse myself. So
okay, fine.
I mean, I can't share confidential stuff, but I haven't been there for 3.5 years, so I don't actually know what they're working on right now. Apple Vision Pro was started years and years ago. And so I think that was the timing of the day was let's build something that's really good. It's more proof of concept. I don't think they expected us all to be walking around wearing that in our daily lives, but it's an amazing piece of technology and I think a good start. I will say, Tim, I worked under Craig Federighi. I have lots of respect for Craig, and I just wouldn't count Apple out. I think that they have some catching up to do in a number of areas.
The basic thesis is never count Apple out of the game. They're better when they lay back, learn, and just continue to refine,
Yeah.
I just add to that. I think it's at anyone's risk to do that. I think Apple has this scale and might, this, Randy, they could come very, very, very late. I think they were like this almost 60th MP3 player. The iPod was like not first, second, even 10th. It was like very late in the game. Many other people tried. So they weren't like the innovators of the MP3 player. They just kind of studied everyone's failures and eventually figured it out. But the problem with Vision Pro was it didn't turn out to be the iPod. It was a fire in like a 90-degree direction that probably taught them some things. I'm sure they're going to error correct.
Yeah.
The good thing about being Apple, right, is that you have unlimited at-bats. Right. A startup has got one, maybe 1.5 at bats, and then you're either on base or you're done.
Right.
But Apple can stand up there all day whiffing away. But when they get a hit, it's going to be on 1 billion devices, and not just any devices, but the devices of the most affluent people in the world.
Yeah. I will say that even though it's a big company, individuals still have a big impact there, and I think the innovation that's going on behind the scenes, I would just know those people and I wouldn't count them out for sure. But like everyone, I'm waiting. I'd like to see them move quicker, not just on the glasses, but AI as well. But I wouldn't.
Well, there's rumors of an acquisition that will potentially jumpstart their future, and maybe in the wrong direction. Who knows?
I think acquiring Perplexity is not a great idea. It is a cut rate chat GPT that brings back some annotations with its hallucinations. But it is not better than chat. I thought for a hot minute it was better than chat GPT, but it isn't. I'm going to spend some more time with Anthropic and see, if it can be a better servant to me than Perplexity has been. But I think Apple is going to make a mistake if they acquire Perplexity.
I got to Apple through an acquisition. They bought a company that I had made called Drift. And so I've had firsthand experience of what happens to an acquired company. And that's sort of the beginning of this story. So if they do acquire Perplexity or some other AI company, that won't be the end of it. I mean, that'll be the start of it.
Right. So let's talk about your journey a little bit, Randy. In specific, you mentioned a company that was acquired by Apple. Tell us that story.
Well, it probably starts at the beginning where I helped a friend when I was in university who had broke his neck and was quadriplegic, C1, like chin down.
Yikes.
Couldn't move anything. And this is in the 1980s. And there was this brand new technology called liquid crystal displays and digital audio that were coming out, and basically built a laptop for his wheelchair before they existed, and helped him communicate. And it was just a student project. It turned into a company, and I spent about 20 years doing assistive technology, helping people mainly with spinal cord injury. And at the time, we thought the computer is going to be the leveling device. We're going to level the playing field. The computer can replace their arms. So how do you use a computer? Well, you need to use a keyboard and mouse. So we had to figure out how to replace the keyboard and mouse for people who can't use their hands. And we developed the first on-screen keyboards, the first word prediction, autocorrect. That was like 1990. We were doing that stuff. And then we made a head tracking camera that replaced the mouse. And people could type about 10 words a minute. And I was like, that's not leveling the playing field. We need them to be able to type as fast as everyone else. And voice recognition at the time was nowhere near good enough. And so, they would puff on this switch. They'd move their head, puff on a letter, move their head, puff on a letter. Do it one at a time. Maybe you see the word predicted and you puff on it. So I'm like, if they didn't have to stop and puff, they could go much faster if they could just move their head through the letters. And so we invented this thing that ended up becoming Swipe, which is the text input where you slide your finger from letter to letter. And we spun that out, made a company called Swipe. It ended up on most Android phones. I think there was 1.5 billion installations of Swipe. Nuance acquired that, and then Microsoft acquired Nuance. So that was a fun spin out of, the technology we were doing to help people with disabilities. And a good example where most things developed to help people with special needs ends up helping everybody. And we just saw that over and over. So with that experience, I turned to tablets because the iPad was just coming out. And now people are typing on glass, and we tried to figure out how can we allow someone to rest and type like you would on a normal keyboard. You kind of orient your fingers and then you type, whether you're 10 finger or 2 finger, you need to kind of touch the keys, and you can't do that on the screen of an iPad. So we made something called Drift where you put your hands down and it formed the keys under your fingers. And then as you typed, if your hands drifted a little bit, the keys would just follow you. So you're able to type without looking on an iPad. And that's the company that Apple acquired, in part to get that technology and in part to get me to come and run the text input team.
And that leads us to today, and maybe we should get, because this is a father and son duo we have for the podcast today, maybe we should get Colton in on the action to talk about where we are now with that background and that pedigree, Randy, and what you're doing with Skidattl as kind of the evolution of a lot of this technology kind of rebirthed in a new way for a new age. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think always followed sort of the entrepreneurial thing. I was, the child labor in the back, putting little grommets into the mounts to for all of the webcam type devices for head tracking back in the day. Followed around I was in university when Drift was happening, so I was sort of intern type work going from there. But always sort of been excited in pushing technology and seeing how we can take existing things and making them a little bit more usable for the average person. And I think we've kind of seen that with at least me coming up. Like I got the Oculus SDK on Kickstarter when it first came out, being like, oh, this is going to change the world. And then, now we're at 20 some years later or 10 years later, and it's starting to get a little bit more ubiquitous, getting into the real world. I think AR has kind of been in this game first mentality for a while to the end consumer outside of industry or training type things. So I think our first big, probably like every AR company says, is like the big aha, oh wow, the market's ready to accept this, was sort of when Pokemon Go came out. And as we played with it, it was like, okay, well, this is kind of AR in the sense of not putting, assets on the screen, but tracking your position in space and showing you on a map and interacting with the real world. So from there, we kind of came up with the idea was, well, how do we get people out in the world and incentivize that behavior by using augmented reality to help them get out? It's kind of, I think, where our Kickstart sort of took off. Randy always tells a story about how my younger brother was living at home with him at the time. He's like, man, you should probably go walk the dog or something. You've been on your computer all day. He says, yeah, but then I'd have to go outside. Okay, well, how do we incentivize you to go outside? And it's sort of the birth of it. So, originally our idea started as sort of going out and, filling up your Sims bars. So you get all of your social, your outdoor, and sort of keeping track of yourself. We met with this company that was doing mental health through, tracking things like your typing behavior and messaging and stuff on your phone. And they said, oh, this would actually be great to sort of help prescribe these activities going outside and go check off the things on your list could be super beneficial. So that's when we found, oh, okay, cool. There may be some, mental health applications behind, getting people outside and interacting with the world again, rather than being sort of nestled up indoors on their computer all the time.
That's a great segue into maybe starting at the beginning with what is Skidattl, what does it do, and then we can dig in a little deeper into how it works and where you're going with it.
Yeah, I can jump in, I guess.
Either Marsden.
Segue. Listen, most founders, say, I have so much to do. I wish I could clone myself. And I said, I did clone myself, so I'm going to use them. It's like younger, better looking, smarter. Really simply put, Skidattl is a platform that lets you create virtual signs using augmented reality. Just really practical. And anywhere you basically drop a pin on a map in our SaaS and you put a sign there and you can choose what the sign looks like and what it says. It's about as easy as making a Facebook post.
Is there a QR code involved that is local to you that you need to scan before you can see the AR?
Yes. Yeah. Each experience, we call it, is a group of beacons, has a QR code associated with it, or a URL link. You can also just send your friends a URL link. But yeah, you scan the QR code and then you instantly, we use an app clip on iOS and WebAR for Android, and you don't have to go download the app. You just scan the QR code and you're instantly seeing the virtual signs. And we've got billboards, we've got smaller signs. There are spinning try sign. There's sort of some signs that you would used to see in the real world. We've just made virtual versions of those. And then you can use them for all the same things, advertising or conveying information. But they've got some advantages. You can tap on them and then it opens up more information. You can have text, pictures, links, and we track the analytics of that as well. So it's smart hyperlinking of the real world is basically what we're doing.
The beauty that I saw when you and Colton walked through the product with me is the ease of use for an end user, whether that's an individual, a corporation, a large company, a small company, a startup, to actually implement this in a way without jumping through a lot of hoops. Like, you sort of define where you want it to be, you put in the parameters, kind of like, to use a reference point, like when the different companies started to help, like Squarespace, like help regular people build a website with templates and ease of use. You're doing that with this very focused, location-based, drop a pin, get a cool sign that you hold up your phone to it, scan the code, and boom, there it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you ask the average person, hey, go make an augmented reality asset and look at it, they wouldn't know how to do it. You know, you pretty much have to be a developer still and use these studios and the tools that are made. So we wanted to fix that and make it so that it's simple. Like, we're not making animated games and characters and stuff. It's just a sign that sits there. They're animated, of course, but it's a very simple, practical use of it that anyone can do. And that's
Randy, you know what this screams to me? Two things. Because when I spent time with Google as an investor in Magic Leap with Larry and Sergey, they're like, find toothbrushes, boring daily things that everybody does.
Yeah.
And you're definitely thinking like a product leader inside of Google, looking at how do we make Android, AR toolkit better, or a product leader inside of Apple, which is how do we get more people to use AR features on the phone or when we have daily wearables. Like, it'll be things like what you're doing. So if you run Google or Apple, please buy Randy's company at some point. Thank you. No, but it really sounds like the kind of thoughtful product leadership that's what those companies want someone to build, that then creates more daily use for, iPhone, Android phone, wearables. Like, it'll be these kind of things glued together nicely that ultimately create the daily habits, right? Which is like brushing your teeth. This is going to be like a daily habit AR use.
Yeah, it's not as pizzazzy as, dragons flying through the air, but I think that those big
It could be, though, right? One of those markers could activate a dragon.
Sure. I think those big companies have most of their hands full working on the hardware, like billions of dollars spent on glasses. So once they achieve that, they're going to need content. And so that's really where we're at. We're kind of getting ahead of that. And the content can be viewed on your phone today. And it's basically crowdsourced content. Anyone can go to our website and try this today, Skidattl.com, and there's a free trial. And you can create one of these things in 5 minutes and see it outside your house and see it on your phone. So it can be crowdsourced content that's just waiting there for when we do have ubiquitous glasses. In the meantime, it's really useful still through your phone.
It seemed like Niantic was sort of dancing around this a little bit, but never got it to this simpler state. Now with Niantic kind of getting absorbed by Scopely, the gaming company, maybe Scopely looks at you. We're all sort of becoming sort of, VCs in front of your face going, what about this if this happens? This sort of puzzle, this kind of chessboard.
You know what is interesting? I was talking the other day to Matayu Lorraine, who is one of the Google DeepMind guys who was involved with the Paris AR that won Rock Paper Reality a Augie Award at AWE. Mm-hmm. So it's integrated into Google Maps. I don't know if you're aware of this, and it's quite spectacular. Of course, there's a video of it. And Matayo said, you do not know how hard it is to take an app like Google Maps that's being used 1 billion times a day and try and make any kind of a structural change to it. He said, and also remember, the architecture for Google Maps existed long before anybody even thought about augmented reality having anything to do with maps. And so I think that what you're doing, it sounds like on one hand, are you building a feature for a Google Maps or Apple Maps? That's the first question. And the second one is, couldn't they do it themselves? And I guess I'm answering that question for you. No, they can't do it themselves. It's too hard.
Well, it's just a very practical use. One of my favorite presentations at AWE was Jasmine Roberts. She is a Microsoft researcher, and she gave a very irreverent, amazing presentation about the state of the art of the industry. And she said in tech, there's 4 layers. There's the power layer, the hardware layer, the compute layer, and then the experiential layer. And we're used to working on the experiential layer, but really in XR, we're still down on the compute layer. Most things are being platforms, tools, development environments. But we're actually up there on that experiential level, and we're building something that real people can use. You don't have to be a developer. So I think so far that puts us a little bit ahead of the game. I think everyone else is coming along in that way, but we were a little bit surprised because we just thought, okay, this is a great use for AR. Let's make a really practical use for it. And we're using this at Ritz-Carlton Resort to show where the surf lessons are, a theme park in Spain you look around and it shows the wait times on all the rides in real time, golf courses, university campuses, Waikiki Trolleys is using it in Honolulu.
So what does it cost Waikiki Trolleys to license, a license for Skidattl?
If you go on our website, there's different subscriptions. So it's a SaaS subscription. You license the SaaS platform, which lets you make things.
Sure.
For end users, it's free. And so an enterprise level subscription, $7,500 a year. And then it goes down from there. There's a free version, there's a basic and a pro.
And these enterprises are obviously seeing value even at this early stage of, spending sub 10,000 a year and getting that kind of smartphone layer to deploy, as opposed to the other marketing tools they'd have to build, right? Paper maps and various sort of wayfinding things and other sort of web applets and so forth and so on. This is just a little more seamless way to get people to know what services are available in their area, right? As they come.
Yeah, I think we've, like AR isn't as fully ubiquitous as, we'd love it to be moving into the future. So as we're like, what we built out first, it was, let's go B2C. Let's put this in everyone's pocket. We get it everywhere. And we found that a lot of businesses were sort of wanting to get this at events and experiences that sort of already had a crowd being drawn in. Like we worked at a music festival, working at golf courses. People are already going and experiencing something. And this is sort of like an add-on to their experience that can give a little bit more information, and sort of help make it a little more fun, interactive, that sort of thing. So we've, sort of moved into this more B2B to C space where it's, let them make their experiences, their events a little bit better, a little bit differentiated from their competitors, and just, help that pushes out to the, the end user getting a little bit more familiar with the concept. Obviously aiming for when, it becomes more ubiquitous, glasses are more common kind of thing.
And when you look at what your dad's wearing right now, it sort of screams out, hit that form factor, hit that field of view, no wires, hit human resolution, run all day. Now billions of people are using what you guys are making.
Roni
so
and
all you're
Randy,
doing is predicting to that. That's what you're trying to get
Roni and
to.
Randy are wearing just regular everyday vision correction glasses.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's very, sorry, go on, Randy.
Oh, I think I saw you say, Charlie, you're losing your religion on the last podcast about, glasses. But
well, about displays. I'm all in on glasses.
Right.
Because adding some AI to your glasses takes what you're already doing and you're already wearing, and it makes it better. And that's when technology really succeeds. And of course, it doesn't really cost you that much to add those features to your glasses now. So with that small amount of friction and people rapidly becoming more AI literate, wearing glasses is something I may go back to, even though I don't need them since my cataract surgery.
Yeah. Well, I think we're still believers and hopeful. There is displays that are going to be coming to glasses because your vision is so important. And there's obviously AI that we're working on to create these beacons, we call them, automatically. So you can go into our SaaS and make them manually right now. It takes 2 or 3 minutes really to make one. But, imagine things like you're in a neighborhood and wondering what the houses are worth in this neighborhood. So you just tap your glasses and ask, show me the Zillow estimates of these houses. And then you're just looking around and it's got arrows pointing at the house and showing you the numbers. that sort of thing we're, already working on, automatically generating these things. And then, the AI and XR coming together is really the future that we're talking about. That, what I just described is a quick example, but you could be walking around, it's basically Jarvis, I was in Cozumel and walking down a crowded street, and someone behind me says, "Randy Marsden?" And I look around, and it's my friend's son, who I knew in Canada, and just by chance he was there. And, it's like 5 seconds I would have missed him. And you think, wow, what a coincidence. I think those coincidences aren't so coincidental. I think there's people around us all the time who we know, we just don't see them. And once in a while, it's just the timing. So your glasses could say, "Randy, did you know your old high school buddy is at a restaurant a block away?"
Yeah.
What? Or if somebody's at this event, show me my friends who are here. So, of course, that's privacy gated, but I think that's an exciting world that we're really just starting to pioneer. And, when you talk about immersiveness of XR, our philosophy is we want to immerse you in the real world. We don't want to immerse you in an alternate world. We're going to tag the world and pull you back into it. And so that's the whole philosophy of Skidattl, is the real world is the lead actor. We're a supporting cast.
Well, when you talk about that, all that narrative and all that talking point very much talks to the way entertainment has viewed like the evolution of augmented reality and wearable reality, right? That you mentioned Jarvis, and there's many, many examples, both utopian and dystopian. There's a bunch of Black Mirror episodes and going all the way back to, Twilight Zone and so forth and so on that sort of talk about this concept of when we overlay onto the real world. And obviously Niantic proved it with Pokemon Go, that when you get a lot of things right, you can have that lightning in a bottle moment, right? So maybe my question to both either Randy or Colton is, who else, is there competition in the space? Is there anybody that's doing this a little bit like you that you've sort of saw and said, this is kind of right? Because there's a lot of people experimenting with the idea of overlaying onto the real world, right? But clearly they've missed certain things that you guys are tapping into, right? Who would you even say is your competitive forces out there that are either driving you forward or giving you pause?
Colton's turn to talk.
Okay. I think there's always like the big guys, like Google Maps has some AR type features for wayfinding. That's great to see. I know at South by 24, I think it was, or 23, Niantic sort of promoted this thing they were calling Truffle that was kind of comparable, putting these sort of geo-anchored AR assets out there that you could sort of interact with, and hosted video and things like that. I think mostly what we've seen sort of at this like bigger enterprise type event type thing are, like, a good example of someone we saw at AWE was Lucid Reality Labs did this sort of snap filter skinning of the new Universal Park. So when you're there in person, it sort of can change themes or put their assets around it. We went to that session. We're super excited to sort of see how somebody else is sort of tackling the real world with at theme parks. And it was an interesting concept. I think it's fun to sort of skin things. But I was kind of hoping they did a little more like us, where it's like actually in the park walking around, you think like magic bands at Disney. When you walk over the bridge at the castle, it sends a ping to your phone and says, this is a random fact about this thing. I think talking about like the AI glasses essentially right now, sort of when you're in places, you get to hear, you get the audio version of it. I know personally for me, I'm not I want to sit here and talk to my phone, talk to myself in public and sort of get all my things audio. I can read faster than I can hear. So I think I'm excited for being able to put that information in front of you. Maybe I'm just a more visual learner than auditory or something, but sort of seeing it and getting to interact.
Ronnie, to your point, the 50 tries until you get to the iPod, maybe Randy and Colton are the ones that have the iPod moment around this, that get it right. Right? Yeah. Clearly people are experimenting this for many generations now, and there are moments of rightness. We called out Pokemon Go, but maybe these two guys are the ones that really get it right. It'd be interesting to see.
Well, I would give you guys a little bit of guidance, just building on Colton, what you said. One is we are evolved very slowly over a long time as people, and our brain is spatial and likes to be in the world and do certain things. And when you artificially force it to do digitally things, like kids have been maladapted to like twitching on Twitter, and, Instagram and TikTok, and has affected their ability to think and to operate because the brain's neuroplastic. But if you restore how we work in the world in a more natural way, like the fullness of why the human brain works well, can happen. So it's not like when you walk around, you look at trees, you look at stones, like signposts have been around for a long time at all these different distances. So one of the things I would caution you guys, the human brain does not want a piece of text 2 inches from the lower eye all the time. That's just weird. We're used to seeing signals and signs everywhere, and they're not always 2D. So I think as time comes on, you'll have the ability to like float information where it needs to sit naturally in the world. And then it won't have a cognitive overload. It won't be weird. It won't like stretch your brain in these unnatural ways. That was the problem with Google Glass. It always forced you to look up to the right at some near distance and cause like neuromuscular strain. The more you just flow with how the brain wants to be in the world that is there, if you guys can solve that, you kick everyone's butt. Because I think these other companies are always missing how the human brain works, trying to force us to fit with their tech. If you guys can go the other way, I think you have a chance at winning.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that advice. And I mean, that's exactly
unsolicited
where we're heading. When we say we place beacons, we place them like a sign at a geographical location. And if you get further away, it gets smaller. And in fact, sometimes we've learned we have to animate them a little bit because people have looked through their phone and think it's just a sign in the world, so they don't know they can tap on it. So they look so real. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And listen, I mean, we've been sort of watching from a distance, but this came out of me. I mean, I left Apple to do Skidattl because, I couldn't do it while I was in the company. And I just put my head down. I gathered some team members that used to work with me at Apple, and we just said, let's solve this problem. And so we just jumped to this solution. I don't think that we followed along the journey as much of what everyone else was doing. We just put our head down and said, okay, practical problem. How can we pull people back into the real world? How can we augment the real world with additional information that's not obtrusive? And we've come up with Skidattl. And to our surprise, we ask about competitions. We haven't found a direct competitor. Knock on wood, I'm sure they're coming. And so we need to hustle. We're fundraising. We're a startup. We're trying to go fast and hard to get this thing to market. But that's our goal. And I would say, as an entrepreneur, I always learn to make things simple. And, starting with people with disabilities, how do we take what we've learned from there and apply it to everyone and to make our lives easier? And then that just got beat into me at Apple. 7.5 years at Apple. User experience, that's what it's all about. And so all that DNA has gone into Skidattl, and I hope it's what you're saying. I hope we are the 50th one that.
So Randy, when they come knocking and buy you guys and you're all big and fancy, could you come back to the podcast?
Oh, come on. says the founder of Magic Leap. Come on.
One last question, I guess, and in a way you just answered it, because you need to raise money, is how are people going to find out about it?
Yeah, that was my question too. How do you get the word out? How do you get more clients to know? I mean, obviously you're doing a podcast. This is a tech-oriented audience. It's large, but we're probably not a lot of your key clients. How do you get more?
Yeah, we're not in the travel industry.
Yeah. How do you get the real estate companies and the travel companies and the local ice cream shop that needs to get more customers in the door, right?
We hustle. We do what startups do. We got to get out there and hustle. what we've done to start with are some pilots. So I think data speaks louder than anything, any PowerPoint could. And so we've done pilots with theme park, with a resort, with a golf course, and we've collected data. We've done surveys. We've seen how adoption went. So we can take that data now to other customers and say, and prove, this is the adoption rate that you can expect. This is what happened here. So that's how we're approaching it. We're guerrilla, like we're bootstrapped. I've funded this myself mostly, along with some angel money. But now we are going to market. So we've got the thing built. Of course, there's more features we want to add. There's AI that's coming, but it's ready to go. We can use this today and people can try it. So to go to market and to really do what you're saying, let everybody know, takes money. And so that's why we're doing our seed round now.
Yeah. Right. Well, great. Wishing you the best luck with that. And as Roni said, hopefully we'll see you back here on the podcast soon. And we'll be talking about your great success. So wishing you guys the best and many, many thanks for joining us this morning. This has been a great conversation, and that's why I know you'll be back. That's our show, everybody. Thanks for listening this week. And next week is July 4th, so we'll be off. So we will see everybody on the 11th. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you, guys.